call the regular council meeting to order. Welcome everyone, and if you would please rise. We'll be led in an invocation by Pastor Rita Richardson, and we'll follow that with a pledge to our flag.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we give thanks with grateful hearts for your many and abundant blessings we have here in the city of Russellville and the River Valley area. And we are thankful for those who so generously give of their service in our community. I pray for our mayor, our city council, department heads, and for all city employees who serve in various levels of our city government with dedication and a commitment to the people. We also give thanks and pray for the dedication of our law enforcement officers, firefighters, and emergency services workers in our community. Lord, bless our city leaders in their work and grant them wisdom as they make decisions affecting our citizens and our city's future. Guide them daily as they work hard to create an even stronger community for all of our citizens. As our city council members consider the items on the agenda tonight, help them to work together to make the best decisions possible for the citizens of Russellville. It is in your most blessed name I pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and be seated, please. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Ms. Caruth? Here. Mr. George? He's absent. Ms. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Sims?
Here.
Mr. Tripp?
Here.
Mr. Wiley?
Here.
Mr. Westcott?
Here.
There's quorum.
All right, a quorum has been declared. Council, you've been provided with a packet of minutes from our recent meetings. If there are no questions or clarifications, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, there was one correction I would request. There was a statement about a building, one of the buildings downtown, and it stated that I instructed Mr. Holstein to send out the letters, and that was actually just, he informed me that he was sending out those letters. So just for clarification on that.
That's,
Thank you.
That's correct, and we'll just modify them like that.
Correct.
Yeah. We can modify those. They have not been signed yet, so we'll correct that before they're sent out.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any other corrections? Motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Westcott.
Second.
Second, Mr. Wiley. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, takes care of that. Mr. McCoyne, tell us our financial condition.
Mayor and council, report for September. General fund revenues were $871,633. That's 5.16% above our projections. Tax receipts were $685,224. Franchise fees and permits of that was $43,079. General fund expenditures were $1,116,065. That's 2.21% below our year-to-date projection. We've received more to date this year, $359,769 more received than expended. Of that, $90,000 was from a donation, and then we also transferred $246,000 out of the capital for operating our aquatic center. Street fund revenues were $150,135. It's 2.28% below the projection. Sales tax receipts were $404,305. The half-cent road tax was $51,292. Street fund expenditures were $153,831. That's 10.17% above year-to-date projections. Sales tax improvements, we spent $43,813 for lighting, Cedar Street, and some overlay. There was no capital expenditures in street fund. Economic Development, revenues were $37,763. $33,678 was the new tax, $4,085 interest. Expenditures were $300,849 for the Alliance and Weir Road improvement. Capital assets, revenues were $167,961. $166,644 was new sales tax with $1,317 interest. Expenditures were $567,471, and we paid City Corp. We had some building R&M, aquatic center payment, fire department, and the parks. Any questions?
No questions for Mr. McCoy?
Thank you.
In that case, thank you, Jerry. Moving to the mayor's report. First, Kevin from Polk County Library System, would you like to give us an update on what's going on there?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to let everyone know of a few events that are coming up at the Polk County Library in the next few weeks. Saturday, October the 28th is going to be a busy day for us. From 10 a.m. until noon, there will be a Halloween bash in the children's department. There will be games, crafts, a photo booth, and a costume contest. This is for toddlers up to 12 years of age. That same night, as well as Halloween night, from 7 p.m. until 10 p.m., we will be having our 5th annual haunted house next door to the library in the Heritage Hall. This is for people 12 years of age and up. Last year we had around 1,000 people attend this, and we expect a large crowd again this year. The event is free. We do accept donations gladly, though. Also, on the same day, we will be part of the Fall Fest. We'll have the bookmobile there. So if you're there, stop by and visit with us. And then in the month of November, we're going to be involved again in the National Novel Writing Contest. This is for people who like to write stories. The goal is to write 50,000 words within the month, from the 1st to the 30th. Some people have gone on to become published authors if they are one of the top winners of this contest. We offer the library as a writing space, and if you come during the month of November to write at the library, you can sign up each week for prize drawings there at the library. If there's any questions. Okay. All right. Thank you for your time.
Questions for Mr. Massey? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we'll have Ms. McGuire from Main Street, Russellville. If you'll make that up while you're presenting, I'll meet you over there.
This is my favorite event of the year.
Y'all didn't hear that, did you? I just had a member of the audience call me a bitch. You all have been confused. I am actually the downtown fairy godmother.
Betty, would
People in position.
you do the microphone? Would you do the microphone so we can hear?
You know, Mary, y'all love me because I have a loud mouth. People in positions of royalty, such as myself, usually have the accoutrements of the trade. So I have my orb and scepter with me. Johnny, you have got to get a picture of this. Continue. And y'all know I am so shy. So, Mayor, I also have a gift for you after we finish this other thing, so, okay? Shall we? I'm ready. Yes, sir. I am
Tell them
ready.
why you're dressed up? Is that-
Well, you're going to tell them part
I'm
of
gonna
that.
tell them.
Yes,
All right.
and then whatever you forget to say, I'll add. How about that?
All right. Whereas in 1992, Main Street, Russellville began working to restore, renew, and revitalize the heart of our city. And whereas that same year, the first downtown fall festival and chili cook-off was held to bring people back downtown and gather together as a community in the heart of our city. And whereas in its 26th year, the festival has grown to include businesses, individuals, and organizations from throughout our community and beyond. to celebrate our sense of place and quality of life. And whereas the festival includes activities for the young and young at heart that include live music, great festival food, and so much more, now therefore I, Randy Horton, Mayor of the City of Russellville, Arkansas, hereby proclaim October 28, 2017 as Downtown Fall Festival and Chili Cook-Off Day.
Very good.
Congratulations.
So, thank you.
So-
Thank you. I appreciate it. Oh, my gracious.
Somebody must-
Perfect timing.
Somebody ate some of the chili, I guess.
Yeah.
Good.
So if I may just take a moment, I have something to show you. Those of you that don't know, every year we've done this wonderful festival on the streets of downtown Russellville. And one of the things that we do is we work with the graphic arts students out at Arkansas Tech, and we do a contest of sorts with those students to come up with the design for our t-shirts. And this year, because we have a really tech-savvy young lady in our office, we actually put the artwork online so that the public could vote. And so this is hot off the press from Mullen T Sports Today. This is the new festival t-shirt for this year. Jessica Laffoon, I hope I got that name right, is the student that designed this for us. And Mayor, this is your official Fall Fest t-shirt. If you need a smaller size, come by and see me. Come by and see me. Come by and see me and I'll get you fixed up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you down there.
Folks, come and join us next Saturday, October 28th on the streets of downtown Russellville. I guarantee you a great time, great chili, lots of fabulous festival food, some wonderful live music. But join us downtown, the heart of this community, in the town square that we have never had. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Betsy, and thanks for your work down there. If you will, Council, I'm going to let Mr. Smith give us an update on the items at the convention center that we discussed a couple of weeks ago, and ask for your consideration on something. Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know from our meetings earlier with Mr. Hunt, one of the things that he's not provided was performance bond. I spoke with Mr. Hunt, his attorney, along with the mayor back on the 13th, last Friday, and that conversation, I've given a summary of the points of it. Mr. Hunt also was allowed to insert his recollections into really 2 through 8. Most of them are his notes as well as mine. His claim is that he cannot get a performance bond for the whole cost of the project based upon what he said over the phone, which I clearly recollect was because of performance bond issues related to requiring one, and also he had mentioned in his subsequent follow-up this collateralization. He proposed, based upon his stated inability to get a performance bond for the whole cost of the project, to do what he called covering each phase, which, as you see in paragraph 1, the project's broken down into 8 phases. I believe he is on phase 3 and anticipating moving on to phase 4 at this time. His alternative proposal is to cover it as each phase comes in, and that he would either cover it for a performance bond for that phase or through cash if he believed that the new market tax credit would cover a phase, and that tax would be that cash would be accessible to the city should there be some type of failure to complete that phase. However, as our conversation progressed, the last point, number 8, which is in his own admission, that is his part of the notes, He acknowledged during the phone conversation that the city would have some limited exposure, and that's based on if there's some type of insolvency on his company. After that, Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, researched both the issues concerning performance bonding as well as the new market tax credits. I had some conversations with people at Nationwide who write performance bonds. They said that their typical performance bond would not encumber the project, but it would instead attach to the assets of the company. In other words, it wouldn't put any type of lien or on the project, which Mr. Hunt had claimed would keep him from not being able to be eligible for new market tax credits. I also got in touch with Heartland Renaissance Fund, which they have been they're an entity in the state, part of Arkansas Capital, which they've been doing business with new market tax credits since 2003. And they stated even if there was a lien on the subject property, it wouldn't necessarily make them ineligible for new market tax credits. They stressed to me that they're very flexible in trying to help a developer get the new market tax credits because of economic development reasons. They even informed me that the last one they've just wrapped up did have a performance bond on the whole cost of the project. Based upon this, both of this information from the performance bond and about the new market tax credits is just contrary to what the mayor and I discussed with Mr. Hunt back on the 13th. I believe it leaves the decision to the city council to either accept Mr. Hunt's counter proposal or stick with making him post a performance bond for the whole cost of the project, or y'all can come up with an alternative that y'all have thought of at this moment that's different from those two options.
Do we need a motion or something on this, Mayor?
Or what if we just don't acknowledge it?
Huh?
What if we take no action on it?
I just think that with him putting that out there, I think we need to let him know.
I
If we're
agree
gonna
with that.
if he's gonna accept this, if we do nothing, I think he could say he was working on the assumption that we had agreed to his phased
Need to make a
proposal.
motion to leave as is in the default letter?
And send him a follow-up letter telling him.
I think there's
It doesn't start a new 45 days either, right?
no, he has floated
When's the
basically
45
an
days up?
agreement.
Middle of
November,
November, 15th, 16th, 17th of November.
So my motion is to,
Do you want me to send a letter to have him reject the phased, and that we are holding him to a bond on the full project?
because that's been from day one.
Yeah, for the whole thing.
and not piecemeal.
That is safeguarding taxpayer money
Yeah.
That's
on
correct.
this project.
I second.
We
Is that the form of
restate it,
motion?
Mr. Tripp.
Please.
To, I guess it corresponds with Mr. Smith's option A on here, basically just sticking with our original, not changing anything, stick with our original default letter from October 2nd or whenever it was, that he's in default because the performance bond was not provided before time of starting.
Okay, and the second was Mr. Westcott. Any other discussion?
Yes, Mayor, and just for the record, new market tax credits is not something new into this discussion, neither is a bond requirement. These have been in here all along.
Yep.
And so we play these games
Yep.
and start twisting words, and we're holding our position.
I agree.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That'll clean up most of that. I was going to do a mention of some recent activity by the police department, but I think I see down here that the chief is our department report this month. I think I'll let him cover that. we'll give you an update. The fuel truck at the airport that you all bought earlier this year is finally in. Last I heard, they were coming down to calibrate it, make sure we're charging the right amount for the fuel we dispense. So if it's not already in service, it will be in the next day or two. And so I think that's all I have for this report, and I'm going to turn it over to Chief Humphrey to let you tell us about the good things at Russellville PD.
While he's passing that out, I'm going to go ahead and get started. This is the 6th annual report for me to present. Each year I share statistical data, crime analysis, departmental highlights, crime prevention tips, officer accomplishments, current events, and other items that may be of interest. This year's report is no different. Unfortunately, there are people in our society that have no respect for the law or even their fellow man. They are all too eager to take advantage of others, especially the young, elderly, weak, poor, rich, naive, and ignorant. These offenders harass, steal, scam, kill. They assault, use illegal drugs, and sell illegal drugs. Fortunately, most of us will never fall prey to the criminal endeavors of these offenders, unless we don't lock our doors. We keep our valuables stored in vehicles. We don't use secure online practices, especially with personal or financial information. Or we have a false belief that crime only happens to those people. I want you to know there's no such thing as those people. We're all those people if we're not vigilant and safety-minded. I want to further illustrate what I'm referring to as naive and ignorant. When you get the call that you've won the sweepstakes that you don't remember entering, well, the reason you don't remember entering it is because you didn't. It's a scam. Hang up the phone. When the IRS calls you demanding immediate payment on a tax debit or debt, or you will be jailed if you don't make this payment, it's not the IRS. Hang up the phone. Or if you get an official notification to send a $500 processing fee to receive your $10,000 inheritance check from a relative you've never heard of, well, you can send the check, but don't call the police because we'll not be able to get your money back for you. If you get a call on your cell phone, no matter what the area code is, and you positively don't know who's calling, I strongly suggest you not answer it. Let it go to voicemail, and then decide later if you're going to return that call. Finally, your computer is not infected with the virus. Don't let someone call you on the phone and tell you your computer has a virus, and give them your password. If you do, you may lose your financial identity, you may lose your life savings, but you may gain 6 new credit cards in your name. This one has nothing to do with bad guys or crime. But please, don't text, surf, take pics, send pics, look at pics, like me on Facebook, or tweet your fondest admiration for your police while driving. Motor vehicle crashes continue to increase each year. We were seeing a decline for years, but now with smartphones and texting and driving, they're increasing again. Each year we have approximately 1,300 motor vehicle crashes on the streets of Russellville. The leading cause for crashes is distracted or inattentive driving, not speeding, not DWI, or not other traffic violations. That's my crime prevention lecture for this year. 911 calls for the police often fluctuate from one year to the next, but typically increase slightly each year. Officer-initiated activity may also increase or decrease based on operational directives, assignments, staffing levels, as well as many other factors. The slide may be hard to read, but you've got it in front of you. This represents the first 6 months calls for service as logged through dispatch compared to the first 6 months calls for service logged last year. As you can see, most of them are similar, except for self-initiated officer activities such as misdemeanor arrest. And I'm not going to elaborate a lot on that tonight. I don't have all of the data to support one way or another why this number is what it is, but I do know that shortages on the shift, the officers are more selective in getting into your minor arrest situations. If you'll look, the felony arrests are still remaining similar, but we are short-handed, and those numbers reflect officer activity. 911 calls are still going to come in. We still answer those calls, but the officers are being told to be more selective in getting into misdemeanor arrests, which many times takes an officer off the street upwards to an hour or an hour and a half, and then he would not be available to answer the more important calls. The next slide is a slide that I've used every year. It also represents the first 6 months of last year compared to the first 6 months of this year on crimes against persons, property, and society. And then there's the definition of what those are. This slide is something new that I've not presented before. It is the calls for service through dispatch for a 1 week period. This past week, it ended a couple of days ago. This represents a total of 674 calls in a 7-day period. As you can see, those on the left, they are our top 10 calls for service that we have responded to. We've had 16 theft calls, 17 welfare checks, 21 alarms, 22 motor vehicle crashes. We've responded to 24 follow-ups to follow up on ongoing investigations. Out with subject, that's where an officer gets out with someone walking, usually at night, and makes contact with that person. Suspicious person in events, 29 calls. Disturbances, 32, which is always the majority of our calls. 33 abandoned vehicles. I questioned that number. I looked that up, and yes, well, there were 33 cars around usually the downtown area that are left and unattended, and the officers are just checking out, find out why the car is left where it's at. 229 traffic stops, and then all other calls would be 226. If you take that number of 674 and you multiply it by 52, representing 52 weeks of the year, you'll get approximately 35,000 incidents, 35,000 calls for service, which includes on-view arrest and other officer-initiated activity. So you can see, yes, we may report how many 911 calls we have and how many 911 or officer-initiated calls we have per year. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around that, but to look at just a 7-day snapshot, it's very easy to see that our officers are very busy working the street. I have a prepared statement here about Operation to the Dirt, and recently, or just as soon as I got here, Captain Smith gave me an update on this, so I may switch back between what I've already prepared and some handwritten notes here. Last week, we participated in Operation to the Dirt, one of the state's largest methamphetamine investigations led by the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, U.S. District Attorney's Office, and various state and local law enforcement agencies. Our federal partners gave us the necessary resources to make this 2-year investigation become what it was. I do, however, wish to emphasize it was local law enforcement that began this investigation. It's local law enforcement that contributed throughout the entire investigation, and it's currently local law enforcement that's still investigating and making new cases. Our fifth Judicial Drug Task Force was instrumental in making this operation the success it was. The staff attorney for the U.S. District Attorney's Office personally expressed to me how important our officer assigned to the Drug Task Force was in making this such a success. Prior to this operation, up to 15 pounds of methamphetamine was being trafficked through our River Valley area on a weekly basis. Several pounds were seized during the operation, as well as dozens of guns, many stolen from our area. As successful as this operation was, it did not eliminate the drug addict's desire for meth, nor new dealers' desire to make an easy buck, if you want to think that selling drugs is an easy buck. That being said, it's no time for us to pause and gloat about the success of this operation. It's back to work. I want to emphasize, just like Sheriff Jones did last week, this investigation is ongoing. It's not over. There will be more arrests. And what Captain Smith just handed to me before the meeting, the latest is that 58 arrests have been made as of today of the 70 original warrants that we had. In excess of 50 guns have been seized. And during this 2-year period, approximately 600 pounds of methamphetamine came through the River Valley. The street value is about $15,000 per pound. This equates to about $9 million. 18 Russellville police officers participated in this investigation and arrest. 2 days ago, more current, 2 days ago, 2 days ago, 2 individuals were arrested for stealing vehicles from a local car dealership. A total of 12 cars had been stolen. The perpetrator stole dozens of car keys from another dealership to return later and steal vehicles from that facility also. On the 4th night of their crime spree, they were apprehended by our officers. Four of the cars stolen were recovered by the Little Rock Police Department, and those cars had been traded for marijuana. One was recovered when the suspect attempted to flee our officers. One was recovered at a local motel, and this morning we recovered 2 more from the Russellville area. As you might predict, this investigation has led us to investigating other crimes and implicating additional suspects both locally and across the state. Special events. This is recently we had Community Unity, and our officers participated in that. The city has issued a total of 41 special event permits this year, requiring primarily resources from the police department and public works. Additionally, officers have worked 110 extra non-law enforcement events. The frequency and size of these events is beginning to interfere with other activities in our community, private businesses, and residents. The most requested 5K venue, the North Phoenix and West Parkway, is now creating conflict with the patrons' access to the newly opened aquatic center. Additionally, some merchants downtown are complaining about the businesses being frequently interrupted. We are at a point that we need to look at options before next year's event season starts. Some of you that were on the council remember, we have a special event ordinance that regulates this. It has worked brilliantly. It took us, Mayor, I don't remember, it took us about 2 years to get this thing passed. It was discussed by by 2 mayors, multiple aldermen, several people from the community, and I think it's one of the best ordinances that the police department has had to work with in years. We absolutely support community events, these special events. We like working these events, but the more we have, it does disrupt activities within the city. And as I said, the North Phoenix route is the most popular 5K route we have, both for day events and night events. But people can't get to the aquatic center now when we have those events. So we're going to have to look at some options. I think Mr. Hollis had been approached about completing an existing trail at one of the parks to make it a complete 5K trail. I don't know, I haven't discussed that with him, but I know that is something that's been discussed. So I absolutely welcome your input on this. Speaking of downtown, last week my wife and I were eating at the Old Bank Sports Grill when we observed a uniformed officer appear. He had a serious demeanor about himself, and he looked like he was looking for a fugitive. He was all serious looking. Being an off-duty officer and being the chief of police, I asked him if there was anything that I could do to help him and what the nature of the call was. He said, "There's a large dually truck parked out on Main Street, and it's interfering with traffic flow. It's a safety hazard." Well, it wasn't a fugitive, but it was a safety hazard nonetheless. Downtown parking seems to be of concern for many. I have had many calls about this issue, and some of those calls are from some of you. We should embrace this problem. It means people are down there enjoying themselves and spending money in our city instead of some other places. But we do need to address how to better manage parking downtown. My biggest concern is the safety of the motoring public, the safety of pedestrians, and nighttime or dark condition issues, safety issues in particular. This concludes my report. As always, it's a pleasure to share this with you. I would be remiss if I didn't take this time to commend the men and women who work at the Russellville Police Department. Whatever their assignment or function, I really think they're the best. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chief. Good
Thank you.
report. Anybody have any questions for Chief?
Well, I do have one question. Back to the special events and stuff. I know, and you in the Public Works Department and others, but the two departments are hit hardest with all these special events. And I thought back then, and it's just something to think about later on, I thought we sort of, do you get any money? Is there any money that comes your way for the use of your officer time and Public Works
Yes, ma'am.
time?
I can't speak for the Public Works, but for the Police Department, absolutely. And I think, Jerry, you can confirm this. We recoup about 25% of what it actually costs to have police officers come in and man these events. It's been talked about increasing that amount some, and you know, it does tax our resources.
It does.
as I said, we like these events. It's good for the city. I'm less concerned, and the council may be concerned about the finances of it, but I'm really concerned about the operations, of where these events are occurring and how maybe we could better, we don't plan these. That's another thing. We don't plan the events. The people that come to us to get the permit, they're responsible for planning. We're facilitators.
I understand.
And most of the people that had to pay $100 to have police come out there have either quit having their little bitty 13 people 5K, or it's expanded to something tremendously more like 150 people. The bigger events, Las Vegas, we've got this down to, it's a fine-tuned machine, and those people have tremendous amount of volunteers that do a lot of work that police officers don't have to. The first year we had the Las Vegas, we had 47 police officers work that event.
For
We're
a
averaging
for a
about-
long time, right? Not more than 30
For half a
minutes.
day.
Okay, just
So-
a half day? Okay.
So now we've got it down to about 22. They've got a lot of volunteers, and we don't have to stand there just to block a road. We take care of the major intersections and other things like that. But we are comparable with other cities, how they charge for these events. Fayetteville is probably the most event happening place that there is. And the Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue, unless it's changed, costs the city about $30,000 for police officers, public works, and others that work that. And Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue reimburse the city half of that because the city says it's good for our community, it brings money in, we like it, so we're willing to foot half the bill. And so it's something to think about. But yes, ma'am, we do get money.
You did get some money, okay.
Anything else? Thank you, Chief. All right, Madam Chair, while you've got your microphone up there, do you want to go into the Finance Committee report?
Well, yes. Mayor, we met on October the 10th, and my first list is coming from that. The first one I have is for the purchase of the Dalton King Building coming out of Economic Development Fund, $1.525 million. Do I get, okay, what do I do now?
That's your motion.
That's my motion.
Council, you heard the chair's motion. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion passes, Madam Chair.
Second is also appropriation. It's from the police department. It is a pass-through for a replacement of an automobile, $26,000. I present that in the form of a motion.
Council, you heard the chair's motion. Is there discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Appropriation for a sales tax pass-through from City Corp, $275,000. Make that in the form of a motion.
Council, you heard the motion. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
Appropriation for the airport, it's for the Jet A fuel purchase, $30,000. I present that in the form of a motion.
Council, you heard the chair's motion. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The approval from the Main Street Witch, Main Street Russellville, she only needs $13,913. Present that in the form of a motion for Main Street. It's their contract.
Council, you heard the motion. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is approved.
Approval of the contract with the Boys and Girls Club for $11,996. Present that in the form of a motion.
Council, you heard the motion. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved.
Next is the reimbursement for the services to the Arkansas Valley Alliance. I present that in the form of a motion, $5,300.
Council, you heard the chair's motion. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved.
I want to interrupt myself. I see Brittany is here tonight, and Brittany sent us all an email out. I hope everyone read it. And she's our grant person, and Brittany appears to be working hard and doing a good job and working on some grants that are about to come to with an answer, correct? Thank you. I like getting the updates. You're going to start sending those out about once a month, understand? Thank you. Okay, number 8, personnel discussion. Well, I think that's going to, I think I'm going to pass on that one because I think on the main program, it's listed to go into executive session. Discussion of personnel issues. Okay, this, number 9 is the discussion for the step and grade increases for employees. We've had that discussion, so do I present that? And we didn't really do anything about it, but we talked about it.
Jerry and Vanessa have been working on it. If you want to get him to give us an
Okay, does Jerry and Tanessa want to give us your work? We're working on that, right? We can just continue with that and bring that back next month. Okay. I am pleased to say that not only number 10, we authorize the mayor to have recycle bins picked up at the animal shelter. That has been done. We no longer will be paying for recycle bins at the animal shelter. Mike. Consideration of an ordinance. That's all I have to say. I don't have to present that in form of anything. That's already action taken. Okay, consideration of an ordinance amending the Oakland Cemetery Ordinance to suggested changes proposed by Councilman Westcott. Present that in the form of a motion. Do we want to discuss it?
No, not tonight, if you don't mind. We did talk about that at the Cemetery Commission level. There's some new information that we've discovered, and we tabled it at that point, and to give us more time to talk about it. We'll bring that up again at the next Cemetery Commission meeting and then bring that back to the Finance Committee meeting as well.
Okay, so this is going to be a table also?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Refer it back to the finance committee.
And tonight we met?
Correct.
Did I jump ahead of anybody and cut somebody off or anything? Okay.
Let me back up real quick.
Okay.
On number 11, after we talk about that at the Cemetery Commission level, I do want to refer that back again to the Finance Committee, not to the full council.
Okay, table to finance. Okay. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay. Tonight we met again, and first motion, and that I present in the form of a motion, is going to be an appropriation from the street department for $300,000 additional to be spent on street overlay.
All right, council, you heard the chair's motion. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That item is approved, Madam Chair.
Item number 2 is a small item from the police department. It's a budget adjustment for drug testing. It's for $1,358. Present that in form of a motion.
Chair, you heard the motion. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved.
At the Finance Committee, it was discussed, and I think, well, okay, so I present in the form of a motion from the Capital Department for the relocation and some work for that sewer line down by the fire station for $39,697. I present that in the form of a motion.
You heard the chair's motion. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's approved.
Number 4 is a pass-through from insurance recoupment from damaged automobile, $4,500 plus. Present that in the form of a motion.
You heard the motion. Is any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved.
And at our Finance Committee meeting tonight, we have the request for the city attorney to become involved at, I'm going to put building issues at the Aquatic Center to, just to address, for the attorney to address a letter notifying, I guess, the builders that we going to do a walkthrough, whatever. But anyway, I present that in the form of a motion.
Okay, you heard the motion. Is there any discussion?
For clarification, that's going to go to both parties involved.
All architect, all building people, okay. Number 6 is,
We need to
okay.
vote on that?
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
okay. Present that.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's approved.
Number 6 is on the new building we just purchased, the Dalton King building. There's some grooming around it and everything. The Alliance has agreed to the repairs of the building Dalton King purchased by the city. It's not going to cost us anything, so
It was kind of a statement.
it's
of
just a
intent.
statement of.
Were you here with that discussion, Ms. Villeneuve? During Finance Committee, we discussed
She wasn't here.
We'll get together tomorrow on what the council's instructions were and get it worked out.
And I believe that's all I have.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That will bring us to the Personnel Committee. Chairman Sims, you got any business for us?
This month, we do not have any business, but we do anticipate a meeting in the 1st of November.
Very good, thank you. That will carry us down to unfinished business number 1, update on the drainage and flooding issues and plan. Mr. Tripp, you want to?
Thank you,
Take
Mayor.
over.
Yes, we met, I think, back in September, kind of following up from the rain event from August 15th, and addressed several residents. Expressed some concerns, and I think we discussed Mr. Jones getting some information together to present us at the October council meeting. So here we are, and specifically, there's an Owen, Arkansas issue, there's the Prairie Creek issue, several residents from the Brookside, Brookview area, and then I know there's been some others here that hit or miss areas across town. And so I just want to make sure we as a city are addressing those. The administration and Public Works is looking at them one by one, listening to the residents and addressing them so that we can take care of these issues one at a time, and specifically some updates in Arkansas. Mr. Jones.
Okay, so I've got several items here that I was going to touch on. And if that's okay, or do you just want to hear about Owen, Arkansas?
Oh, all of them.
Okay, all right.
Please.
I'll just go down them in the order that I've kind of made some notes on it here. First of all, let me start off by saying that rain event on August 15th, I went back and looked at some rain gauge time data on that, and there was a period there, I think it was from roughly around around 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. And this was a gauge, I believe it was at the airport. So, you know, in these storm events, you know, they'll vary. They're not very homogeneous. They'll vary significantly over different geographical areas. But over a 1 hour period, there was 5.5 inches of rain recorded. Now, if you look at our in our drainage manual, you know, we have some rainfall intensity duration curve data that's included in that manual. It comes from a couple of documents that generate statistical or record statistical rainfall data. Anyway, a 60-minute storm, 100-year 60-minute storm is a little over 3.5 inches per hour. So what we had granted for a 1 hour storm duration was well in excess of a 100-year storm recorded at the airport. Just to put that in perspective, we don't have any drainage systems in town that will accommodate that kind of storm. But I'll go through some of these, some of the issues that were discussed at that meeting. The drainage issues over there in the Vancouver, Whippoorwill area. We'll say that we've done some field work over in that area and have actually completed a preliminary plan to route some of that drainage that currently runs down Vancouver and discharges into Engineers Ditch below the Waco Detention Basin. We're looking at conveying some of that into the detention basin. And this diversion structure will take that opportunity to enlarge that structure, and that should provide some relief for the ditch that runs behind the homes along Whippoorwill. We're also we're looking at some drainage issues that were brought to my attention along Honeysuckle Lane, kind of there right before it runs, well by the cemetery, before it runs into Inglewood. We've done some field work on that as well. We think we can come up with something that might help alleviate some of those issues, but there's not a lot of grade, not a lot of fall in that area. So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge. We did just receive a large shipment of large diameter concrete pipe. Some of y'all may have noticed a plate. Well, we've had a couple of streets plated where we've had some culvert collapses, one on Durant, I believe, and the one on 4th Street over in that same area between Durant and Waco. And we're working on getting those large structures replaced. We've got numerous situations around town like that where we've got large diameter metal pipe that has deteriorated, and we're trying to tackle those. O Street and Highway 7, I've met with both the Highway Department and Arkansas Tech University. Based on my conversations with the Highway Department, I mean, their position is relatively unchanged. They see this as the most viable option is to route some of the drainage along Highway 7 to the north and into that creek that crosses under Highway 7 and runs along the north side of the campus. They haven't really done any additional work. I think I've mentioned to y'all in the past, it's their cost estimate for this project is approximately $1 million. They have their last official formal correspondence with us has asked for an amount that we're willing to contribute, and that's kind of where they stand. Now, I did meet with Arkansas Tech as well, and they've expressed a willingness to cooperate and provide easements with the assurance that we don't cause any increased flooding on their property to the north, or any I guess I'm not sure any drastic or significant increase in flooding on their property. Built a drainage model of those basins and did a hydrology study of that channel, and based on my model, diverting that water will increase the flow for the 100-year storm in that creek from 1,673 CFS to 1,771. It's an increase of approximately 100 cubic feet per second. I've sent that report to Arkansas Tech in late September and have not heard back from them at this time. The 205 Prairie Creek project is proceeding. They've completed the soil borings, and the Corps of Engineers is finalizing their design on that project. I think I reported last time their anticipated completion date is 2023 on that project. And then I was also requested to get a proposal for a citywide drainage study. I did talk to an engineering consulting firm, asked them to not put a lot of effort into it at this point, because I knew this was going to be a huge number, and it's something that we're going to, I feel like we probably need to solicit statement of qualifications for. But I received an email from them indicating that the study could range anywhere from $450,000 to $950,000. And it would take approximately 18 to 24 months. That's my report.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Because I took notes here, and you mentioned, you know, the Whippoorwill, Honeysuckle, and Inglewood, and Grant. All of it is in that one area, more west, coming east. Independence Streets and Circle Drive and Bradley down to where the public school, where the middle school is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we get a lot of complaints from that area when it rains, and it's not even a serious rain. So when you're doing these studies, please don't ignore, I'll bring it back and back and back and back.
I understand.
And, you know, you know my complaints on those.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you mention the other streets, but I'd also like you to keep in mind this area also too, Mr. Jones, I really would.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Jones, and you know I have a few follow-up questions for you. As far as the Brookside, Brookview, whether it be Honeysuckle or the Independence area, so is this process ongoing, you know, dialogue with the residents? I mean, work's not stopping, the process is moving?
No, we're moving forward with the, I mean, we're trying to pick at these one at a time, but yeah, we're continuing to move forward.
On the O Street in Arkansas,
Mm-hmm.
so what do you need from the council as far as direction or money?
Well, I guess
has there been a joint meeting between you, Arkansas Tech, and the Highway Department together, all in the same room?
No, I think the last, did you not, I thought I received an email from you indicating that the Highway Department was going to arrange that.
If so, we need to follow up.
Okay. Well, I don't know that there's any, I mean, I'm not sure what the point would be to have a joint meeting. I mean, Tech is willing to, you know, provide the easement unless we're, you know, I mean, they said they'll provide the easement as long as they're satisfied that there's not going to be any increase in flooding.
And you're satisfied that their plan that's been around for several years now on paper will alleviate most instances of water issues in that?
It'll reduce the frequency, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
On the Prairie Creek, at that original meeting, there was a concern by a landowner in the Prairie Creek area between Commerce and Arkansas of the current status or state of the concrete area of the ditch. Is it your opinion that we're okay waiting on that until the Prairie Creek project comes to light 2 years, 3 years from now? Or do we need to do some type of minor project there?
Well, as I've stated earlier, I'm not concerned about the concrete affecting our drainage, if that's the question.
Okay.
You know, we've looked at it.
Well, let me rephrase that.
Mhm.
The concrete affecting our drainage or the potential washout of that site.
Well, if it was my property, I would be concerned about it.
Well, I think he came to the meeting and expressed his concern.
Right.
So are we doing anything about it?
Well, is that our responsibility, I guess?
Well, if it's identified as part of the Prairie Creek project,
Mm-hmm.
then it's part of the project.
Right. And
So do we sit on our rears and do nothing, or do we go ahead and address it if you're sitting here saying there's a problem?
well, there's not a problem from a drainage standpoint. I mean, it's if a property owner feels that you know, he needs to protect his property, then I would certainly.
So does he need to request the city to come in and do it?
Well, the city's not the one that put that concrete there. I guess. I mean, the city doesn't own that property. In fact, he owns.
But the city's gonna own that or gonna have
The city is going to acquire that property at some
Right.
point. Yes.
So I don't buy that argument because we know it's part of this project, so it's gonna happen.
Well, okay. I mean, we don't own it. If here's what I can do, I could certainly approach him and ask him if he's willing to deed that over to the city in
That's fine.
exchange for us repairing it. But he's not,
That's fine.
at this point, has not offered doing that.
He's not, so you need him to offer or you wanna approach him with it?
Well, it's, you know, he's approached me in the past to repair it, and I've explained to him that that's part of his property. If he, that's been my position from day one.
And I'm just expressing some concerns here that have been expressed to me.
Are your is the concern for the public drainage system or the concern for the private property owner?
I think it's all the above.
Well,
If you remember a few years ago, in the ditch between Waco and Vancouver, a fence section got dislodged as the water came through there, and it blocked one of the where it goes under the road, and it created a tremendous problem on that rain event that wouldn't have otherwise been caused, but because of that. So there's been concern about some of that concrete dislodging.
I'm not concerned about that at all.
But that's one concern. The other concern is, if that was washed, if that area is washed out, because that's in a high flow, high volume area right there, and that building sitting in the ditch, then whose responsibility is it?
Well, I really think that the chances of that building collapsing into the ditch are fairly remote at this point.
I'm just asking to state it on record.
If I'm instructed to go repair it, I'll certainly go repair it.
Okay. All right, moving on to your hydrology study. I believe there was a study by FTN in the late 1990s that we discussed that was not very detailed or specific. It was more of a broad study. Are you talking about reinventing that study, or you're talking about taking that study and making it more specific?
I'm talking about making that study way more specific.
So starting with what we have and expanding on
It would, anything that we have now could certainly be used, yes. But we're talking about a tenfold level of detail.
Okay. I had sent you and the mayor some information on FEMA grants that were sent to me by a FEMA employee. Have we explored any grant options?
I have not yet.
All right. Mayor, once the discussion period's over, I'd like to put a motion to table this for next month's meeting.
Any other discussion? Okay, you want to do your motion now?
Motion to table this to next month's meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to table from Mr. Tripp and a second from Mr. Wiley. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll continue that on the old business. All right, that brings us to new business 1. First order of business on that is a public hearing. This is concerning vacating a portion of South Frankfurt Street.
Had an ordinance, do we have to suspend the rules?
You need to do that first, yes.
All right, so the first thing we'll do is declare the public hearing open.
Oh, okay.
Anybody that wants to speak on this item, this is between the 500 block of East 11th Street and 500 block of East 12th Street along the DNR right-of-way. Anybody here that wants to speak on that? Okay, it appears there is nobody to speak, so we will close the public hearing. And this was recommended by the Planning Commission. Does the council have anything they would like to address on that?
It's an ordinance, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Have to suspend the rules, read the title on, short explanation.
Is that a motion?
Motion.
Second.
And its motion is Mr. Wiley, and second is Mr. Westcott. First, we'll vote on the motion to suspend. Will you call the roll on that?
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Ms. Cruth?
No.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Motion carries.
An ordinance vacating and abandoning all of the right-of-way of South Frankfurt Street running between the 500 block of East 11th Street and the 500 block of East 12th Street and DNR Railroad Block 5, Oakland Heights Edition to the City of Russellville, Polk County, Arkansas. And for the purposes this ordinance, if passed, would abandon, vacate all the right-of-way in the aforementioned area of the City of Russellville.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
We got a motion, Mr. Wiley, and a second, Mr. Westcott. Is there discussion?
So this is for adoption, this is not one reading of,
No, that's for adoption.
Yeah.
Planning board approved it by 100%.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You want to call the roll?
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah.
Mr. Tripp?
no,
Ms. Caruth?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
yes,
Mr. George?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. That'll bring us to new business number 2. This is also an ordinance for approval to rezone property that is currently residential office to commercial 2 at 4340 North Arkansas.
Motion to suspend the rules, read one time by title only with a short explanation.
Second.
We got a motion to suspend from Mr. Westcott and a second from Mr. Wiley. We'll call the roll on that.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
yes,
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah.
Mr. Tripp?
yes,
Ms. Caruth?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, Mr. Smith.
An ordinance rezoning certain realty in the city of Russellville, Arkansas, and for other purposes. This ordinance, if passed, would rezone property currently C2 to C2 that is currently RO, which is residential office located at 4340 North Arkansas Avenue.
Motion to adopt.
We have a motion for adoption from Mr. Westcott. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Second.
Second from Mr. Wiley. Is there discussion?
I would like to ask exactly where is 4340 North Arkansas? Where is it located? North
Mr.
of the
Gooden is
interstate?
here. Would you like to tell us where this is at, Mr. Gooden?
I didn't see him back there.
Yes.
Then there's an old house there.
If you've been out Highway 7 recently, I've gone in there and cut out some underbrush and exposed an old house that you couldn't see that was back there in those trees. That's where it's located.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other discussion? You want to call the roll?
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
yes,
Ms. Caruth?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
yes,
Mr. Brown?
Yeah.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Motion carries.
That should bring us to new business 3. Again, an ordinance rezoning property manufacturing 2 to commercial 2. Recommended unanimously by Planning Commission.
Motion to suspend the rules, read one time by title only with a short explanation.
Second.
Okay. Again, motion Mr. Westcott and second Mr. Wiley. Is that Mr. Wiley or
No,
Mr.
that's
Brown?
Mr. Brown.
Mr. Brown.
I woke him up.
All right. Shake things up a bit. All right, you want to do the roll on the motion to suspend?
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
yes,
Ms. Caruth?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
yes,
Motion carries.
All right. Mr. Smith, go ahead.
An ordinance rezoning certain realty in the city of Russellville, and for purposes, this ordinance, if passed, would rezone property located at the 200 block of South Pittsburgh Avenue, as further described in the attachment with the ordinance labeled Exhibit A, currently from M2 to rezone it to C2.
All right. Is there discussion?
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt. I believe Mr. Brown got that one.
Second.
And second, Mr. Westcott. You want to call the roll?
Now, and does this include the emergency clause?
Yeah, it says right there.
Vote on it separately.
Okay, because we did not vote on the emergency on that last one.
No one made a motion.
We did not.
Passed right through it.
Is it needed?
That was Mr. Gooden's. Mr. Gooden, while you're still here, we did not put the emergency clause on yours. Is there? Okay.
He don't do that.
Thank you. Thank you. Our mistake. Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay, so we're up to
Call and roll.
calling the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Ms. Caruth? Yes. Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. I'm shocked to see that Mr. Garza is, there he is. Mr. Garza? No? Okay. No request for emergency clause. So that'll bring us to number 4. This is a resolution for a special use permit. In that same area, same property, this is recommended unanimously by the Planning Commission.
Motion to approve?
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Westcott. Second, was that Mr. Brown again?
He will
Mr.
try.
Wiley, you got a sore throat?
No, I
Need a
won't
piece of
give
candy?
up.
Second, Mr. Brown. Is there a discussion? In that case, we're going to call the roll. I know it's a resolution.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Ms. Caruth?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, that motion is approved. That will bring us to 5. Mr. Smith, explain what you were just telling me, where we're at on this deal.
Well, the state law as now dictates that before a private club can begin the process with the Alcohol Beverage Control Division for getting a private club permit, it has to first go before the city council, which has to pass an ordinance that approves such a permit, and then it goes from there, from the city to the Alcohol Beverage Control Division. This ordinance was just to establish that process. However, if the council is in favor of readjusting the fees that are currently on the books on ordinance 1278, then that's something I would have to go back and do. I do not have that tonight. I just have establishing that permitting process, and also there is an applicant here, or applicant representative here, that has submitted a private club permit. This is, I believe, for the new hotel that's being built, the Marriott, which is by the interstate on Aspen. So if you have any questions with her concerning the actual permit itself, you could ask her, since she is here, she'd come from Little Rock, to make herself available to answer any questions you might have.
Do we need a motion and a second for like first reading? To be in play, or do you guys want to be in?
Make a motion for the first reading of the normal process and suspending the rules by title and short explanation
So
only.
suspending the rules, first reading only.
Yes.
Okay. So that we can discuss this.
Mayor, I thought we tabled this earlier.
Well, we'd like to hear from this representative, and so because it's a first reading, we can,
Okay.
we're only suspending for one reading, not
Okay.
for all 3. So is
So
that,
is this, are we gonna have to get involved in this liquor issue?
Yes.
yeah, it's,
We
yeah,
don't have no choice?
it's been put on us by the state now, so. We need to get a second on the motion.
Second.
Okay, so we are suspending the rules for the reading only and on the first reading only. All in favor? I guess we better call a roll. That's what we do.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Ms. Caruth?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Let me do the rule.
Yeah.
In order to establish a permitting process for private clubs in the city of Russellville, Arkansas, and for other purposes, this ordinance, if passed, would implement the state of Arkansas's Act 1112 of 2017, which requires local city council approval of all applications for a private club permit prior to them being submitted to the Alcohol Beverage Control Division, and this ordinance would implement that state law for the city.
Okay, young lady?
My name is Bethany Marshall, and I am here on behalf of Russellville Watering Incorporated. And I also have Jack Grunfest with me, who is a part of that ownership group and the larger hotel and restaurant group that is putting in the Marriott and the bistro that will be inside it. City Attorney, Mr. Smith, you did a great job kind of covering the overview of that. But yes, for a restaurant to serve alcohol, the ABC has to grant them a permit. For them to grant them the permit, we have to submit an application. The state recently changed the law. August 1st went into effect a new bill that requires that the city grants the ABC permission to begin that review process. So the application process has not changed. The due diligence is at the same level, but in order for the state to begin that process, you have to give them permission. And so we're here tonight to answer questions, to cast the vision, and frankly request that you will adopt this ordinance so the state can begin their review process.
Council, any questions?
We acknowledge this is new. August 1st, this went into effect, so there are only a handful of cities that have had to address this.
So far. We, one of the discussions earlier was that we just learned that they also changed the fee that would apply, and we need to, under advice from Mr. Smith, we need to update that. Is there a time crunch on this?
We do have a timeline in which we're trying to get the restaurant open. I believe it's the end of the year we were looking at. We have our application ready, the check ready. I'm not 100% that would be an issue for us to go back if you need to look at that again.
I have a question. What were you told the fee is?
$250.
Okay, well, I would propose that if we make any changes, that her establishment be grandfathered in, because I believe we need to keep our word.
Yeah.
Well, that's what currently the ordinance has it at 250.
So we can go ahead and vote.
Well, you have to adopt this ordinance tonight to set the process, and then you can adopt the next ordinance to grant the permit. But right now, you've got ordinance number 1278 that is controlling, and it has at 250. It says it in the ordinance that all private club permit will be 250.
So if the council wants to go with Mr. Sims' recommendation that we leave it at 250, we could go ahead and,
He was saying the grandfather them in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Mr. Sims. I don't think we should change it for someone who's already done all the work.
Once they've already done their due
But if we want to
diligence.
change it for future,
I would recommend that we address this before the end of the year so that going forward from January 1, it is at the different rate.
yes.
we could go ahead and, as a matter of fact, we tabled that till next month, the part about redoing
I'll
the
have
ordinance.
another one next month.
So if you want to allow them to have it at 250, procedurally, I've seen this in some other cities, we can finish this reading and then we can immediately move for the other two readings, correct?
You can do another suspension,
Yeah.
suspend it completely again.
Okay? That's just, if
Yeah.
And you'll have to
y'all want to do it that way.
You'll have to.
Do we have to add that as a late item?
Oh, it's on
We have
It's right.
Yeah.
We'll need to do the emergency clause for this one too.
Okay. So is there any other discussion on this?
What is this? Are we on 5 or 6?
We're on 5.
Still, okay.
Okay? And we'll have to pass 5 to do 6. And so,
When we do 6, it's just for this one.
correct.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, it's correct. It's specific to this one. Okay, so now, Mr. Sims, do you want to make a motion for the next two readings?
Yes, I so move.
Or do you want to,
You need to suspend the rules.
We just
Yeah.
did
Yeah, let's
the first
suspend the
reading
rules and
now.
go ahead.
we
and do
did the
that.
first reading,
So
but
you
we
need
can,
to suspend it completely.
you can suspend again
Read the next
for
two.
readings 2 and 3.
So that we
And
can-
In a lot of cities, this is,
Yeah.
they do the same thing we are, but they actually do 3 different steps, so. But since we've already done one, so you're making a motion to suspend
Right.
the rules, read by title only for readings 2 and 3. Okay.
I second that.
We have a second from Mr. Westcott. So we need to vote on the motion to suspend on rules on readings 2 and 3.
Just talking about this one.
Mr. Sims,
Yes.
Mr. Westcott,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Tripp,
No.
Ms. Caruth,
One more time, can I ask one more question?
Sure.
please? Okay, we're talking about just this young lady's thing.
That's
That's
correct.
it.
We're talking about number 5.
No.
Yes.
That's the
Her deal is
problem.
not number 5.
Yeah, her deal.
Hers is
But
number 5.
Her deal is number 6.
But we need to pass 5 in order to
He's
get
right.
to
But we
6.
have
He's
5
right, Mayor,
in
we
order
need-
to do
we-
6.
No, you're right. 5 will be for everybody, but we've got to pass it going forward anyway. And that's not the part that is this where the $250 is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll pass it for this one, and then we'll come back and have to change it next month anyway, because we want to change the 250 to half of 1,500.
Why can't you just
Why don't we
leave
just
5
say
like it is and read number 6 and make the motion on number 6?
Well, number 5 has a plural behind clubs.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
Why-
I
Mr.
see
Mayor,
an issue
point of
there.
order,
No,
we were in the
point of
middle of
order.
voting.
Pardon?
Well, that's correct.
Why are we in such a hurry to do this? One more time. Why are we in such a hurry?
To grant ours, we'd like the state to begin their review process of our application, and they can't touch the file until you give them permission to do that. So with the holiday, the end of the year, we would just like to begin that as soon as possible. And your next meeting is mid-November, is that correct?
Yes.
How long does it take to get this permit?
When's the next board meeting? It just takes one board meeting, doesn't it?
I don't know that answer.
What's your opening
Well, I've been there
date?
and done that, and I think it just takes
Before
one.
we get too far off, let's go ahead and finish the reading.
Yeah.
Mr. Sims is correct on procedure.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, what are we doing here, 5 or 6?
this is number
You have
5.
to do 5 before you can do 6,
Right.
correct?
Yes.
what do you got, Ms. Caruth?
Well, I don't like the way
Ms.
5 is
Caruth?
worded. Okay, because
Ms.
we already
Caruth?
tabled that.
Yes.
Yes. You were up to
What did you
vote.
say?
To suspend on rules, on readings 2 and 3.
For number 5.
This is for number 5.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Wiley,
Yes.
Mr. George,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, so now discussion. Well, Trey, read it.
Board established purchasing process for product clubs in the city of Russellville, Arkansas. For the purposes ordinance if passed would implement state law, Act number 1112, 2017, which requires that local city councils approve all applications of private club permits prior to the meeting submitted to the Alcohol Beverage Control Division. This would set up such a procedure to allow the city to take a permit, take an application, issue a private club permit that they could then take to the Alcohol Beverage Control Division and then get their state private club permit from that point.
Okay, so now discussion.
Yes, in Section 5G, permits required by this section shall run for 1 calendar year, and annual permit renewal fees of $50 shall be due and payable on December 1st, ... If we approve this in its current form, and they are, quote, grandfathered in under this current system, when their permit is renewed, will it be renewed at $50, or will it be renewed at the rate that we set when you come back with the information for the update of that ordinance?
In November, I will have an ordinance and it will repeal this one. It'll set up another permitting process, but if the council, if the majority changes it to $750, then yes, it will have a $750 charge at that
So
point.
then we
Okay.
can't do that later.
This is only going to be in effect until it's repealed next month.
Okay, thank you.
Question. The
Mr.
renewal,
Sims.
though, you said it's just $50 a year?
No, I think it can be changed to $750 as well.
It's currently 50, but
Okay,
it can
you
be.
think it can be changed, or you know it can be changed?
I know it can be changed based upon the wording of the state law.
Okay, other discussion?
Motion to adopt.
We have a motion to adopt from Mr. Westcott.
Well, can you brief me, I mean, exactly where are we on this? I mean,
Okay,
okay, thank you.
this is for final adoption
Okay, for
uh,
what? Okay,
on item 5.
and that means $50, $750, we can change it next month?
Yes. Right. Tracy, say that again, because I'm not sure
Okay.
everybody
Say it
heard.
loudly again.
Say what?
The proposal is to pass this ordinance tonight so that item number 6 can be passed, which will give this group their permit so they can go to the Alcohol Beverage Control Division. Next month, there'll be a new ordinance that will repeal this and will place in the new permit fee of $750. So this will be in existence until next month when you repeal it.
And then the annual rate
Will
that
be
you discussed.
$750.
Okay. All right.
All right. We clear?
Clear.
Any other discussion? We got our motion in second, right?
Here's the second.
With the motion, Mr. Westcott, did we get a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. George.
He woke up too.
Mr. Wiley's got his whole end in it.
They would've worked a little bit too.
All right, call the roll, please.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Mrs. Caruth?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, I'm assuming you'd like for us to vote on the emergency clause, so that takes effect tonight?
Yes.
They're requesting the emergency clause.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, so we got a motion, it's Mr. Wiley back in the lead and Mr. Westcott doing second.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Ms. Caruth?
No.
Yes. No. Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question, because I'm just confused, which is not new, but I'm confused. You know, this is the first one of these that I've seen in years, and yet everywhere I go, everyone has a small bar set up in their restaurant. Why do we not have to vote on their liquor permits?
Because this changed this year.
August 1st.
That was my question too.
Up until then, they could just go get it, and the city didn't have
Legislature,
anything
yeah.
to do with it. Okay.
Changed it.
They would come back after the fact and then give it a permit from us.
Business permit.
But now the state has made it city first and then the state second. They've reversed the order.
We used to,
And
they had to
they-
get signatures.
But all they had to do under our old ordinance was just apply, and there was not a requirement to go in front of the city council and get an
Yeah.
ordinance. That was also a new requirement. It used to be done administratively. Now they require the city first, the city council pass an ordinance. Those are the two new changes.
So all new businesses that are going to get, from now on, they will have to come before us.
That's correct.
Alcohol.
But the end result though is the state though, isn't it? We just give
Yeah.
them,
The state still has the final
Yeah.
say.
Okay? All right, thank you.
All right, that's going to bring us to number 6, the ordinance actually approving the permit for Russellville watering.
Motion to suspend the rules and read one time by title only with a short explanation.
second.
Okay, we've got a motion to suspend Mr. Westcott and a second from Mr. Wiley. So we're voting on the motion to suspend.
Is this for all 3 readings on this one?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Gotcha, okay.
Call the roll.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
No.
Ms. Caruth?
No.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, Mr. Smith.
An ordinance approving the private club permit for Russellville Watering, Inc. and allowing for the application of the required permits from the Arkansas Alcohol Beverage Control Division per Arkansas Code Annotated, Section 7-9-222 is amended, and for other purposes, this would issue a city permit to Russellville Watering Inc. for the location at 154 East Aspen, Russellville, Arkansas 72801.
Motion to adopt.
Can I abstain?
Second.
We have a motion, Mr. Westcott, and a second from Mr. George. Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Ms. Caruth?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Is it safe to assume you'd like the emergency clause on this?
Motion.
Motion for the emergency clause, Mr. Westcott.
Second.
Second, Mr. George. Any discussion? Voting on the emergency clause.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Ms. Caruth?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Council, before we go to item 7, if you would indulge this, we've got a young man that signed up to speak on, he basically wants to make an announcement. This is not an agenda item, and this is a little outside of our normal procedure, but he's been waiting patiently, and this is a pretty good event. Would you indulge that and let this young man make an announcement? Mr. Keener, step up to the microphone, please. Sure. We'll let her hand them out, and you can step to the microphone and state your name, please, for the record.
My name is Henry Keener. They call me Poppy at the Writers Group. I'm with the Russellville Rogers Rye VFW, Post 2283, the VFW Writers Group, Unit 13. I know we haven't had Halloween yet, but I'm going to talk to you about Christmas because we're holding a toy run this Saturday. And the reason we're doing it so early is that this is for the Pope County foster care children. Pope County has, I can't get exact numbers because I'm not allowed to, but they have over 100 children in this system right now. There'll be more added. Hopefully there'll be some go home to permanent families. But the foster care program needs a little extra time to get these gifts to the children that need it. Now, we accept gifts, we accept monetary donations. Our toy run is one of the events that the chief was talking about. We did buy our permit, and we're going to start at the VFW out here on Highway 7, and we're going to ride down 7 to 4th Street, cut across over to Knoxville, turn right, turn left into the fairgrounds. You park in the parking lot out there, you walk into one of the buildings we have opened up, you'll place your toy under the tree. We'll have a box for monetary donations. You'll come on around in front of the live band that we're going to have. Crossroads Reunion is going to be playing for us. You'll come on up and get a bowl of chili and sit down and eat with us, enjoy the music, and it's all for the children. And the reason we accept monetary donation, you know, children 12 and under, you put a present to them under the tree for them, they're tickled to death. When they get into that teenage years, they want a little more expensive stuff, or they really don't want a toy. But if they get a gift card where they can go buy what they want, you know, so that monetary donation goes for gift cards for those teenagers. But we'd like everybody to come out and join us. It's not motorcycle, any legal mode of transportation. Bring an unwrapped new toy or monetary donation. Ride with us from the VFW to the fairgrounds. Enjoy some chili and music. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Horton.
Mr. Keener, anybody got any questions?
Any questions?
Comments? Thank you, Mr. Keener.
Thank you.
Council, thank you for allowing that. That will bring us to item 7. It is listed as an executive session, but we'll still need a motion.
Mayor, make a motion to go into executive session, please, to discuss employee matters.
Second.
We got, let's see, I believe the motion was Mr. Tripp, and I think I heard Ms. Caruth say second. We're going to leapfrog her over Mr. Westcott. He's got his name on the record plenty. So, all in favor of the executive session? Aye.
We're gonna end the open forum then, now?
No. Executive session can't be open for? All right,
Mr. Mayor, we didn't call for discussion on that before the vote.
I agree.
All right, it's a good point. So we have a motion and a second for an executive session. Discussion, Mr. Sims.
Yeah, we received some information from our attorney and from our HR director this afternoon, and we really hadn't had time to review it. And I would propose, I've announced earlier we're going to have a personnel committee meeting the 1st of November, and I think some of these issues could be clarified in that. And I would urge that we don't necessarily need to take any action at this point.
Let's vote on it.
Any other discussion? Any other opinion?
It's just a discussion meeting this evening, right?
We got to
No.
vote on it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay.
It's just a discussion meeting.
Is that, I mean,
Just to discuss some employee matters.
You are saying employee matters,
Yes,
not
ma'am.
just one. Gotcha. Okay.
okay. So,
Well, and again, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to have a personnel meeting in November, and employee matters should be brought before the personnel committee.
Well, that's true, but I think I think since some things have just been going on that we all in general know about, and it's something that you can still address with your personnel committee, but some of it is full council, and that's all.
Well, could we not let the personnel committee discuss this and see what they can come up with, and then bring it back to
This-
us, and if we're not satisfied, then we can discuss it later?
This may or may not have anything to do with the personnel committee.
That's true.
Call for question?
okay. All in favor of going into the executive session? We better call the roll on that.
Mr. Tripp,
Yes.
Ms. Caruth,
Yes.
Mr. Westcott,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
No.
Mr. Tripp, I don't get that. Mr. Wiley,
No.
Mr. Sims,
No.
Mr. George.
Yes.
We'll move to executive session.
easier to warm up.
Only take off so many clothes.
I'm getting cramped. Oh, I'm getting cramps. Where's Freddie?
So we need a
The party's on?
motion to,
Stop the music.
motion to come back from executive session.
We got a motion to end the executive session.
Second.
Second, Mr. Wiley, all in favor? Aye.
No
Okay, so
issue.
we're back in
No action
session.
taken.
Mr. Wiley, do you want to announce? Is that what
No results, no decisions were made in executive session.
Okay,
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
we're adjourned.